Terrace Talk on Radio Kerry with Tim Moynihan.
A very good evening and welcome to another Terrace Talk. And tonight we're expecting a very busy show. Always when it's post-National League games or Championship games, we've always got a great response from our listeners out there. And of course, there was great wins over the weekend in different codes as well. And of course, our hurlers travelled to London and had a pretty comfortable win there. So, and tonight we'll be speaking about ladies football as well. And likewise, we look forward to the Six Nations in rugby. Next weekend is the start with Ireland travelling to Paris. But tonight we'll start off speaking about yesterday's victory over Donegal in Fitzgerald Stadium, and I'm delighted to have in studio John Kennedy, who's a regular contributor here to Terrace Talk, and likewise Martin Horgan, who's no stranger to the GA world out there. And if you want to make any contact with us tonight, you can call us on 066 7123 666, text on 083 300 3300, Terrace Talk on Facebook, or tweet at Wishy Fogarty. So we look forward to your comments. Anything. There was a huge crowd in Fitzgerald Stadium yesterday as well. I think the official attendance was just short of 11,000. So Kerry supporters were out in force yesterday. And well, I suppose when you come away with victory, it was all the better. I'll start with you, John Kennedy. I suppose every game, and we said it right along, that's going to start this year because of what happened last year. Youth got its run yesterday, as we've seen. A pretty, I suppose, depleted panel in the sense there was people injured and involved in different things. And I suppose Eamon Fitzmaurice could only play with the players he was dealt.
That's true, Tim, and it's the new year, look, and it's great to see the young lads getting a chance, first of all. And it's the time to be patient, I suppose, in Kerry for supporters, because, you know, these lads are... It's a big step up from minors and under 21s to seniors, and we've said that several times. But it was refreshing to see new guys yesterday taking the game on, and while they made mistakes, they went back and they remedied those mistakes, and there were some great performances, you know, from Shane Murphy out, and a lot spoken about David Clifford, and he played his part yesterday. Shawnee Shea, you know, he showed the maturity. He was a different player yesterday, I thought, to 12 months ago, Tim. The training he's got throughout the year he was in with Kerry definitely has stood him, and you could see that he was...
But he's got it, John.
He has got it, yeah. He always had the football, but it's, you know, that physical strength that you need, you know, from being a minor and under 21 to get to seniors and to play the top teams. And you could see that, I think, the conditioning and the work that has been done over the last 12 months while he was in with the Kerry panel. And
will we see him in the Championship?
Oh, there's no question, Tim. You know, we were hoping we'd have seen him last year, and maybe hindsight is a great thing. I was one of the lads that said he should have been in there, but I think that, you know, he's more mature, he's stronger, and he took on the responsibility yesterday. I thought, you know, he had some great scores, but particularly the free near the end. That was a pressure kick. It was a super score. And, you know, the free that went along the ground, a player with lesser confidence, his head would have dropped, but he went and picked it up and he made sure he kicked it out of the bar from play. So, you know, overall, the win was a win, Tim, and regardless who you're playing, it's about progress and it's about using players and giving them game time, and, you know, we have to be patient. Mistakes will be made, but I think that we have 2 points on the board and we're looking forward to Mayo next weekend. Yeah,
Martin, I suppose winning your home game is very important in the league to keep your league status, and likewise I suppose the experience winning, I suppose, can become a habit, but for those young guys, that sort of experience yesterday should stand to them.
Yeah, it should stand to them, Tim. Look, I think the supporters came to Fitzgerald Stadium expecting a performance from the young guys. Eamon Fitzmaurice, you know, I suppose it was a catch-22. You know, if he continued to go down the same path he was going down, you know, questions would have continued to be asked. But look, I think everybody stood up, to be fair. It was an open game of football. You know, when you're looking at the combined score, you know, there was a score of 5-32. Out of that 5-32, 4-19 came from play. And from a Kerry point of view, and we had a lot of young guys playing yesterday, you know, we had 10 scorers in that 4-19.
All those 6 forwards scored, didn't they? Starting forwards?
All starting forwards scored. And what impressed me most looking at the game yesterday, when you're looking beyond what you see sometimes, is, you know, Kerry down through the past have been questioned and unfairly most of the time, I think, from, how big an impact will our bench make. And our bench came on yesterday. You had Dahi obviously came on the 55th minute and kicked the winning score. And just similar to that, you had Killian Spillane who came on and scored a vital point at the vital stage. Score, yeah. So that's an impact, and it's a bench impact, and that's something we've been missing as well. So it's nice to see everything on show. There's still a couple of questions, but far, far more positives than negatives. A great start.
Martin, we mentioned there a big crowd, and I suppose even walking up to the stadium yesterday, and I think the traffic coming in from the Castleiden side into Killarney yesterday, or the Castleiden-Tralee Road, they were all on about David Clifford. Box office at minor level, but people have to be patient as well with David Clifford. He got a lot of attention in the first half yesterday, Martin.
He did. Look, David Clifford, David Clifford is ready for senior football. It's important that the one thing that's mentioned with David Clifford as we move forward and progress with him is the word patience. Patience is key. He did have Caelan Ward testing him at times yesterday, albeit, nothing cynical, nothing sinister, but, David Clifford would have been well aware that he was being marked by Ward at the same time.
Actually, can I stop you there, Martin? What's your take on that? And we saw something similar down in Innis last year, where a back, I think it was on Paul Gainey, one of the defenders on the Clare side turned his back to the play. He didn't care where the ball was coming from or going from. All he did was went face to face with, similar to what happened to David Clifford yesterday. You're a coach and you're manager of a Limerick under-20 team. If David Clifford was playing Limerick tomorrow morning, would you expect a back to do that sort of thing? No, it was very notable in the first half. He didn't mind what was happening outside. The back turned his back to the play. And I actually got a text today from an avid listener and a follower of Gaelic football, and it was very noticeable.
It was, Tim. No, look, Donegal yesterday did play David Clifford from the front. They played him from the side. They double-teamed him. They did give him, we'll say, a bit of unsavoury treatment. But, David Clifford was cute enough, and this one, I think this comes into play from the word goes. David Clifford, from where I was watching the game, made numerous what we would call as decoy runs. Taking Caelan Ward out of play. But then you've equally got, you had Sean O'Shea picking up on it, you had Paul Gainey picking up on it. So there's no worry of David Clifford. We just need to be patient with him. Physically, he's ready for it. We saw there before he got taken off the field to play, maybe on the, maybe 12-15 minutes to go. Caelan Ward is he's the bones of 95 kg. He's 6'2". And when Clifford tried to get away from him, he could, but it took Caelan Ward with his two hands and all his quad strength to stop him. So physically he's ready for it. We just need to be very, very, very patient so he can get up to the speed of the game, Tim.
That'll come in time. John Kennedy, can we talk about our keeper first? I suppose here in Terrace Talk we have to deliver the message from our listeners out there. All last year they were saying, because he did so well in the previous county championship, there was a call for Shane Murphy. You mentioned there Sean O'Shea, likewise David Clifford, for these guys to get a run. Shane Murphy yesterday, I suppose something unique as well. The last player since Shane Murphy to captain a Kerry side, hopefully we'll hear about it later on, was an Austin Stacks man. Your thoughts on his performance? A lot expected of Shane this year. I know in the league there'll probably squad rotation. Your thoughts on his performance?
Yeah, he's a great keeper, Tim. He's fantastic. His kick-outs are excellent. He's very aware of what's happening inside. He's good hands. He's a good shot stopper. Couldn't really blame him for the 3 goals. Maybe the last one, Tim, was one over the top. Could he have come a bit sooner or whatever? That comes from playing with a defence that you haven't played with, and that will improve in time. But overall, he can be quite happy with his performance. He picked out guys with the short kick out. He varied it, and he was vocal, which you need. Certainly, he's one for the future, and he's going to be there for quite some time. Whether they're rotate, as you say, remains to be seen. But people have been calling for him to be in there. He'll only get better with experience and confidence, and he has the ability. And I've no doubt he will be a future keeper for Kerry, and he'll be there for quite some time.
Martin, I suppose sometimes, when you concede 3 goals in a game, especially a Kerry team, we question our backs. Is that a bit unfair in general, in the sense maybe at times we weren't as winning the percentages in the middle of the park, and likewise the pressing up by the forwards? When people look at it today, they'll say, oh my God, our backs at times didn't give us what they should. Is that unfair because you need protection nowadays and you need somebody working elsewhere?
I think it is, Tim, to be fair to the young guys that togged out yesterday. We did concede 3-6 from play. And ultimately, look, the easiest thing in the world to do is, come down on a defender when they're being exposed, whether it be 1v1 or 2v2s or even 3v3s. But one thing that was noticeable from my point of view, from where I was looking at it yesterday, is we allowed Donegal to come out of their defence quite easily. What was extremely noticeable for me is I was very impressed with, obviously, Stephen O'Brien and Paul Ganey's work rate when we didn't have the ball. But look, that's a learning curve. The younger guys,
of course, they'd be the experienced guys in this pack.
That's what they do. It's second nature to them. They do it instinctively. They do it within a matter of seconds and microseconds. They just do it as part of their DNA. So I think, when I was looking at the game from a defensive point of view, it's not that we got caught or we were isolated. It's just we probably allowed them out a small bit too easily. When we're taking the ball out and we're playing against Dublin, or we're taking the ball out of the fence and we're coming up against Mayo, you're going to get hit within 1 second, 2 seconds, and then you'll get hit again and again. But, even when you look back at the game yesterday evening, we did allow them to come out that small bit.
Very interesting point you made there, Martin. Hit within seconds. Is that something that's coached, that you don't get momentum from the back, you slow down that build-up play?
Look, I suppose each management's vision and setup will be different, Tim. But obviously, you don't want, the last thing you want to do with a hard running team, especially the northern teams who will run at you directly, and they'll have we'll say, interlink runners running off you at diagonals. You do want to stop, we'll say, their momentum as quickly as you can. And if they get an overlap on you, it's not fair, and it's certainly not nice being aside in the full back line and being isolated. You'd
have to agree with that, John, that you have to press up high. You have to work as hard nowadays off the ball as on it. And the game it moves so fast. The intensity is unbelievable. It's very easy to start a move now from the full back line.
Absolutely, Tim. And just when you haven't the ball, you have to work that bit harder, not to allow them to stop them at source, really. And, when you look at Donegal, the likes of McNeilish and McBrearty and Riley, these are top-class forwards, and if you give them half a chance, they'll score. And the one thing I'd be disappointed about yesterday is, in regards to Jason Foley, he played a lot of football out around the middle third of the field.
He was drawn out?
He was drawn out, correct, and he followed his man and he did his job in that. But I'd like to have seen him inside on the likes of McBrearty on a one-on-one situation, because down the road, that's where we'll need him. But look, he got his game yesterday and he did quite well, and he was a link with the attack. He has great gears, he has legs, he can run, and but I think we'll need him inside, because we're looking for one or two backs that we hadn't got last year to reinforce it. But look, there's plenty of time for that. I thought that overall, while the goals may be of a soft nature, there was a lot of space, like Martin said. We didn't close them down that bit early enough. But look, we came out with our 2 points. We can learn from that, and if we can learn from game to game and remedy the mistakes we're making, I've no doubt the young fellas will grow in confidence.
What can we say about that full back line? You've just said it there now, that Jason seemed to be pulled out of play. Cormac Coffey in one corner and Shane Enright, the experienced player, on the other, and Jason in the middle. Overall, looking at their performance,
I'd be looking at them again, Tim. That certainly Shane Enright was on McBrearty for most. He's a top class player. He was on one-on-one. He was isolated a lot. Shane finds himself on the marquee forwards on the opposition at all times.
Well, that's a sign of a good player.
Correct.
That you've
and that's it. And that's how we measure Shane. That's Cormac Coffey. He's a young lad that's going to learn. He did quite well yesterday. Obviously, a few mistakes here and there, and maybe got caught ball watching once or twice. But overall, it's a learning process. As I said before, to repeat myself, there's a huge step up to go into National League and again to go into Championship, and this is a learning process for the lads, and that will stand to them in good stead.
Martin, John said it there, nervousness, you beat Cormac Coffey or any other young player. When you look around you, when you look up at the terrace is almost packed. Likewise, you look over to the stand, it's almost full. These guys, and especially senior football, even though they've played in Croke Park in All-Ireland finals and won All-Ireland medals, this is a different setup when it comes to senior level.
It's a different setup, Tim, and it probably brings its own different mentalities with that in as well. But, I've no doubt, going back to just what John alluded to there, is, I thought Cormac Coffey did quite well, to be honest, and I watched a lot of Cormac off the ball at yesterday's match, equally with Jason Foley. I think once Eamon finds a balance to the team, you will have Peter Crowley, you will have Mark Griffin, you're going to have, we'll say, a lot more established players back. And they'll help steady the ship from a psyche point of view. So we're not always going to see an imbalance that way. But I suppose what the Kerry public would like to see moving forward is that this full back line is tested again next week. You know,
and you have to give players a sustained chance.
You do. You know, we didn't see Greg Horn yesterday. We didn't see Tom Leo. You know, they'll get their chance when the time is right. But I think it's important for us to just have patience with the full back line yesterday. Did very, very well. Did exceptionally well in their first day with the pressure that came with it.
Correct.
So I would really like to see Eamon sticking with that for next week.
We'll now go to a break, but before that, we want to know from you, the listeners tonight, who impressed you most from yesterday, and did anyone travel to England for the hurlers win over in London, and Kerry ladies loss to Cork in Knocknagoshel, and I got one or two texts today. Maybe I know it's my own native club, Knocknagoshel, but wouldn't it be a nice arena to play that game yesterday as a curtain raiser to the Kerry senior game, and it would raise the profile of Kerry ladies, and I'm sure they'd, I suppose, bring more followers again. So if you will have any comment on that, you can call us on 066 7123 666, text on 083 300 3300, Terrace Talk on Facebook, or tweet at Weeshy Fogarty. We've got plenty of more after this break.
Terrace Talk on Radio Kerry, brought to you in association with MD O'Shea's Park Road, Killarney. For the best results, make it MD O'Shea's every time.
You're very welcome back here to Terrace Talk, and I have in studio John Kennedy and Martin Horgan as we discuss the happenings in Fitzgerald Stadium yesterday afternoon. And those comments coming through to us, Mick saw the game yesterday and he thought we were a very hard-working young team. One thing he would like to see is to leave David Clifford alone. We need to protect our young players, give the young man a chance to play, and the media need to take a step back and let him learn. Also, he's pleased with the way Sean O'Shea plays, and I suppose, you know, when David Clifford is as good as he is, you will always talk about him. We spoke about him at minor level, and that's why he's there at senior level, so he'd find it very hard to not get attention because he's such a quality player. Hi Tim, well done to Kerry. They show great character to win the game and looked like it was snatched away from them. We've got to be patient as there will be plenty of ups and downs ahead, and that comes from Charles. Could you say hello to my dad, Timmy O'Sullivan, who lives and breathes Kerry football. He's from Waterville but now lives in Mayo, and that comes from his son Trevor. Well, Timmy, that's a very good, strong Kerry name, and thanks for listening to Terrace Talk. Hi Tim, John said that Shane Murphy's kickouts were very good. It was all short and that won't work against the Dubs. That's debatable because in the past, I suppose, when you're playing the likes of Dubs, because if you lose a lot of possession around the middle, you have to build from the back. So I'm sure over the last number of seasons, maybe that's what Ian Fitzmaurice was trying to do. Even against Galway last year in the championship, we had two big men in the middle of the field and we went short, probably preparing for the road ahead, but it didn't work out for us. So I think that's the way keeper is gone nowadays. John Kennedy, we're looking at the game as in the full back line, and we said that, and no different to Martin, you agreed that they should get a sustained chance. The performance of our half-back line yesterday.
Yeah, Tim, you'd be happy with it. Paul Murphy was outstanding. Thought his energy and his work rate, right at the end, you know, he was turning over ball. He's a link man between defence and attack. And, you know, we didn't think he could get better, but he seems to be getting better, and his levels of fitness are incredible. Gavin Crowley could be quite happy with his performance. You know, unlucky to get the second yellow, but very composed. You know, has legs, can run. You know, and we'll see more of him. And Ronan Shanahan, he was probably one of the best players in the league last year, and for some reason he wasn't involved in the championship.
He got an injury as well, didn't he?
Injury, and that, you know, that ruled him. But he's a lot tougher. You know, he's good in the air, pull down a few kick-outs, and you know, he's able to run. I think we had a very athletic half-back line. And I think going forward, if we are to look, it's only January, but when you get into Croke Park or when you get into the championship, you have to have guys that can run. It's all about pace, and I think these lads can run.
Yeah, and that was one thing that was evident yesterday. Pace,
yeah.
Field. Martin, Paul Murphy, you just mentioned him there. I suppose he can only play one. He can play in other parts of the field, but as far as Kerry is concerned, we do need him in the half-back line.
Yeah, look, Paul, what can you say about Paul Murphy, Tim? Paul's exceptional. Paul set his own standards, and Paul keeps achieving those high standards he set for himself, and he did it once again yesterday. You know, he did end up the spare man. Did we use the spare man as effectively as we could have had? That's, I suppose, another debate. But Paul himself...
What did you think of that sending off?
The sending off? Look, when you look back on it, When you look back on it, it was a strike. Was it a tough enough strike to get sent off? From a physical point of view, it wasn't, but it was a strike. So going by the rules, Tim, it was a red card, yes.
And you said the free man there. What was Martin Horgan have done with the free man yesterday?
Oh, look, there's lots of things I think you can do with a free man, and again, it's up to the management in any given team. You know, the only thing I was looking at it from yesterday, Tim, from my viewpoint up high, was that, you know, if we have a spare man, would it have done a whole pile of difference against the way the Donegal team set up? You know, they did drift back pretty quickly. You know, we were close enough to a couple of players where we heard the Donegal boys saying, you know, tighten. So, you know... And
if this happened down in... You were at Newcastle West the last season, and obviously a very productive season, Martin, might I add, going to county final, you won your league. If in any of the games up along that the opposition were down to 14 men, what's the first message you send out, Martin, to the extra man, no matter where it is around the field?
Look, it's a tough one, Tim, because, you know, it's a hard one to get right, because you do have teams who will try and counteract an extra man immediately, and that can be achieved as well. You know, we did see Liam Hassett yesterday quite vocally, to be fair, ask his forwards to go wide, and they did hit the sidelines, but Donegal unfortunately didn't react to it. Donegal didn't get sucked out. Donegal they kept using this word tighten, and when Liam Hassett was running in saying spread, ideally, you know, we should be giving the ball to the guy that spread, and if they're good kickers, they will put it over the bar, which will force Donegal out of this tightness pattern. So it's a hard one to get right. You know, we didn't try it, but that's not saying it's right or wrong. You know, going back to Paul Murphy, I've never seen a guy give as a committed, you know,
he's
70 odd minutes on a field of play than Paul did. So great credit to Paul. Great player.
John, I suppose it's about using... Look, we'll talk about that later on, because Amherst Dunman and I covered it in commentary. Unfortunately, Ungaeltach came up a bit short. You know, when you have that advantage of a man, and when things are not working for you, a lot of ball being turned over when you go down the middle because of the way Donegal set up, when you're countering, you have to use the expanses of the park.
You have, I'd agree with Martin. You know, it's about spreading them out and opening them out. But Donegal are experts at the swarm defence, coming back in packs and waiting for the break. And they have the guys like McHugh and McNeilis and Brearty to expose the gaps then when there's space. But I think it's very difficult, Tim, with the extra man at some stage. We've all been in a position where our team had extra men. The opposition will raise their game, and there's a certain amount of complacency with the team with the extra man. The loose man, it depends on the guy. There are guys that can play the loose man to perfection, but it's a difficult one to play, because you have to link between both before defence and attack. You have to be available. And if guys drop their guard and say, we have the extra man, we can go forward, it can actually be counterproductive. So particularly against a team like Donegal, like Martin said there, look, it's very difficult, because the way they play, you wouldn't know if you come in late to the game yesterday, who had an extra man, or indeed if anybody had an extra man.
Because they had a pile of possession, did they, Donegal?
They had, yeah.
Is it fair to say that when you have an extra man, that you should be very attack-minded? A lot of teams use it as a sweeper, and you're inviting teams, something I don't like anyway, it's the sweeping system, that you're inviting teams onto you. Should you be more attack-minded when you have that extra man? I
think so, and I think the thing is, like, to hug the sidelines and create that space, bring them out of their comfort zone, and make sure that they have to mark them in, and then when the gaps appear, you have a loose man to take it. So I think that's the way to go, but 'tis easier said than done. And Donegal are experts at, as I've said, they have a lot of big men, the likes of Leo McClune and McFadden and these guys. You know, they hit hard, they take no prisoners, and the
counter-attack is
huge.
Yeah. Lads, you might put on your headphones there, because we have somebody on the line. Of course, Shane Murphy captained the Kerry side yesterday on his debut. Now we've the man who did the same thing in 1995. He's on the line, and I suppose I'll address him as Darren. Good evening, Darren.
How are things, Tim?
Well, Darren Ahern, of course, and a regular contributor, of course, here to Terrace Talk. Darren, first of all, we talk about yourself. It happened back in 1995 in the Championship. What are your thoughts on that? I suppose a big pressure being given the title of a captain.
Yeah, you're making me feel old now this evening. I can only remember bits, but fantastic day. Yeah, I went on your website there during the day to bring up the team and everything. So great memories, Tim. May 1995, a long time ago, but captained the team, first game above in the Gaelic grounds, Munster Championship. I suppose that was the time when you had to win and you had to progress There's no kind of backdoors and stuff, and a couple of new players. And I'm looking back, a couple of legends as well, you know, Maurice Fitzgerald, Johnny Crowley, Dara Canada, Seamus Moynihan. Some great names, and nice to have my own name there. Got a goal and a point that day. Started at centre forward and ended up corner forward. So, proud moment, and nice to have the memory, Tim.
And I suppose, you know, great former great, the late, the man himself, the Bracker Regan, put me on the 40 and build the team around me. That's where you played that day. And you scored 1-1 as well, by the way.
Scored 1-1, yeah, I remember the goal. Nice goal, tucked it away in the bottom left-hand corner. But yeah, I think they were looking for a centre forward. I did okay that day, I suppose, for a first time out. Ogie was the manager, and Sean Welch had a bit of faith in me. I suppose came off of a good championship with Stacks the year before in '94, and was playing quite well and came into the team, I suppose, maybe a month or 6 weeks before that time, and trained, and did okay that day. I'd be proud enough with the way I played, yeah.
Yeah, before I must actually call out that team for our listeners. Of course, it was the Munster quarter-final, Kerry versus Limerick in Limerick on May the 28th, 1995, and the final score was Kerry 3-17, Limerick 8 points. And in goals for Kerry on that day was Peter O'Leary of Killarney Legion, the full back line, Mike Hassett of Lown Rangers, Anthony Gleeson of John Mitchell's, and Barry O'Shea of Cairns O'Reilly's. The half back line was Seamus Moynihan of Glenflesk, Bernard McElligott of Brick Rangers, and Eamon Breen of Fanoog. In the middle of the park was Liam O'Flaherty of Ballydonough and Conor Carney of Brick Rangers. Bingo Driscoll of Onascall, Darren Ahern, the man that's on the line, and Johnny Crowley of Glenflesk completed the half-forward line. And Billy O'Shea, of course, the man that does the analysis here on Radio Kerry for the big games from Lown Rangers, was at right corner forward. Maurice Fitz, of course, of St Mary's, who scored, 210. And Dara Canada of Ungailthacht, 2 points. Sure, whatever we're doing, anytime Fitzy was playing, he was going to clock up those big scores, Darren.
Sure, he was a legend, you know, played with him in UCC as well, and never had a bad game, always contributed, always rose to the occasion. I remember he used to get on the bus when we were travelling away for games above in UCC. He'd go down the back and he'd throw a couple of coats over him, fall asleep, wake up, into the dressing room, gear on, go out, score, 210, back in the bus, recover. That's the way Maurice
an amazing
was,
player.
and that's the way he fantastic, huge natural ability, and never let anybody down. Yeah.
So overall, Darren, before I let you go, it was a huge honour, especially on your debut. It is one thing you were nervous to be making your first appearance at senior level for Kerry, but on a championship game, but to be captain as well. But you were surrounded by great players. That was the big thing.
Strange day, you know, your first game and you're captain, so a lot of pressure, but I suppose the lads took it off, and it's strange to kind of be captain. You had a lot more established people than me, but that's the way the system was. But it's a great memory to have, and you know, thanks for bringing it back up and allowing me to reminisce with you. But to captain those boys, it's something that I'll cherish forever anyway, and a great day and nice memories, and nice to get to win as well.
Great stuff, Darren. Thanks for coming on here on Terrace Talk, and I suppose reliving those memories. Thanks for coming on here this evening.
Thanks.
Of course, that's Darren Ahern, of course, the former Austin Stacks player. And of course, he was the last player since Shane Murphy, who captained Kerry yesterday on his debut. We'll have plenty more after the break.
From the sidelines to the stand, Terrace Talk on Radio Kerry.
You're very welcome back here to Terrace Talk. Of course, I've Martin Horgan and John Kennedy as we look back at yesterday's happenings in Fitzgerald Stadium. And those comments are coming through to us. Patrick from Kilcummin would like to compliment the staff of Fitzgerald Stadium for keeping the pitch in great condition yesterday, especially after all the rain over the last couple of days up the kingdom. The Hussies would like to compliment the young players who played yesterday. They did very well. Hi Tim. Father Casey's GA club in Abbeyfield accommodated the Donegal team on Saturday with their training on the all-weather training pitch with a shower facilities and refreshments afterwards. A lot of young people turned up to see the players, and it's a great opportunity for the people of Abbeyfield. Good evening. I enjoyed the game yesterday, but shameful abuse from a few Kerry supporters towards Eamon Fitzmaurice in the presence of children. People entitled to their opinions, but sickening listening to this type of abuse. And all Paddy McBrearty's frees were taken between 5 and 8 yards near the goals, and then there were frees was supposed to be taken from. Seems to be a huge advantage kicking frees off the hands. Of course, Martin, that's something nowadays that if you are kicking it off the hand, you gain that little yard. Years ago, when you do it from we still have some dead ball kickers, that you do get that yardage, either the angle or going forward.
Yeah, you do. I think
everyone will do it.
Everyone will do it. Look, we've seen everyone do it. I think it's a personal thing from free takers out there. Some prefer to kick from the ground, some prefer to kick from the boot, so to speak. Is there any right or wrong way? Look, Tim, once it's a Kerry man and it goes over the bar.
We spoke, Martin, about our half back line before our last break. Take me to the middle of the park. A very important area, that middle diamond. When you go along, you want fielders there. Obviously, there was a late substitution. Of course, we see it was Jack Barry and Brendan O'Sullivan that started there. Your thoughts on the performance over the 70 minutes? I think it ended up 78 minutes.
Yeah, midfielders. I think we've a lot more midfielders out there than the public realise. We have David Moore and we have Anthony Maher. I'm led to believe that Anthony Maher is on the rehabilitation programme, and he may decide whether he can or he can't continue. I'm not too sure. A lot of it is hearsay at the moment. So you've David, you've Anthony. You've got Johnny Buckley to come back in. You've Jack Barry, Barry O'Sullivan, Brendan O'Sullivan. So look, we have bodies, and I think again I suppose a bit of undue pressure being put on Fitzmaurice, trying to find the right pairing. That's going to take time as well.
Actually, I should have said Barry O'Sullivan there. I didn't say Barry O'Sullivan.
Yeah, Jack Barry didn't start.
Jack Barry didn't start. Yeah. Barry Sullivan in the middle of the park. Can we rate them? The big thing is, I suppose, it's a learning curve. I think somebody said years ago when Darragh O'Shea went up to play Derry, Anthony Tohill said, "Welcome to the jungle." And he welcomed him, and what a great player Darragh O'Shea was after that. It's doggy dog out there, isn't it? That it's a jungle in the middle of the park.
It's survival of the fittest, and look, to be fair to Brendan and Barry, I think they did themselves quite well. They did their clubs proud yesterday, and again, no different to the Cormac Coffeys and Jason Foley's of yesterday's team. I would very, very much like that if we could keep that pattern of midfield the same as well for the Mayo game. It's very, very hard to judge a player. Look, we're all well aware that these guys can play football. They're fine, skillful players. They've been around, they've come up through the system. We just, again, I suppose the theme of tonight is probably patience, and it'll take time. But I would like to see these guys. Are they good enough? Yes, they are. Can we really, really judge them from a performance point of view yet? It's only January, so we can't, Tim.
The two boys at midfield, like you say, John, you know it better than any man, having coached and played there with the best. Very important that we give guys this. It's very easy to talk a guy off the Kerry team, isn't it? If you say a poor performance. Yep. So you have to get a sustained chance.
There's no doubt about it, Tim. Look, and it's one thing to have experienced players, and if they're not performing, but if you have young lads that are learning their trade, and particularly when Mullins was sent off, it changed the whole pattern of the game. Like as one of the listeners sent in there, Tim, Shane Murphy, a lot of his kickouts were short. They didn't go to the middle of the field, but we got possession. Now, on the other hand, Donegal tried the long ones, and a few of them, McFadden was hitting the air, and he didn't attempt to catch them, but he flicked them. McNeilish pulled down a few great kickouts. But overall, it's midfield. It's you need to be athletic, you need to be able to run. It's not all about collecting ball in the middle of the field now. We were beaten there at times yesterday, but we won possession as well, and we linked between the half back line and the half forward line. We'll need to improve on it, and I think games is what will bring that on. And to be great to see that pairing, or near enough that team again. A few more out in Sigerson during the week. If Eamon could name that team or close enough for next week and go up to Mayo, that's another challenge. That's another test.
And something we want, and Martin reflected as well, like you said, pace is very important. We've had panels here over the last couple of years on Terrace Talk, or last number of years. You're constantly looking for pace. But if we're going down the youthful road, we'll have that pace. But outside of that, you must box clever in that area of the field as well.
There's no doubt you must box clever. And, again, we're only in January, Tim, but we're looking forward from the quarter-final of the championship on. That's what you have to be gauging at. You have to be getting your team and your panel ready for that. Martin made a very valid point about our bench. We have to have guys on the bench that are ready to come in and play a part, not making up the numbers. And I think that's where I am. And the management team this year, the guys that have been there, if they're not performing, I think they'll have to make way for some of these young lads, because the time has come to give them their chance. And that when you look behind you, that this guy can come in and a man can be taken off, and the lad replacing him is not weakening the team, he's strengthening it, he has something to offer. And we saw that yesterday. The lads that came in, they played their part.
Martin, I have a question here from a listener. Question for Tim and the panel. Donegal used long kickouts when they were playing with the wind in the first half, so why didn't Kerry do the same in the second half? And that comes from John in Tralee. From
the game I was looking at, Tim, why didn't Shane Murphy go along? goalies that you speak to, especially at the county level, they will tell you that, you know, they'll make a split second decision at any one time for what's best for A, the goalkeeper, and B, more smartly the team. And, you know, primary objective from a kick out is you gain possession. So we did see, it was probably the way the game went in my view, Tim, we did see, like John alluded to earlier on, that, you know, Donegal did not step up to contest the kick-outs. You know, Donegal had 10, 11 men beyond the halfway line before Shane Murphy had the ball even down on the tee. So
did you see the movement as Donegal played before with even from the outset that, and we said it, I suppose earlier, that nobody knew who they were marking at times because there was a bit of confusion as far as maybe Kerry players are concerned. They all left their markers and went to somebody else.
It was interesting at times.
Was that apply?
It does. It applies on the other side. Tim. It was interesting to see from when Donegal were kicking out the ball as opposed to Kerry. So from where I was watching it, when every time Donegal were about to kick out the ball, or when Kerry got a score or Kerry put the ball dead, you know, the Donegal players switched their markers immediately. You know, sometimes they'd switch 3 out of 6, sometimes they'd switch 4 players out of 6. We saw the stage yesterday where they switched 5 from 5. You know, we had, and I actually looked at it last night just to, I suppose, double check my own notes. You know, we had at one stage two Kerry players actually looking at each other with their hands out saying,
so where's their man gone?
Who am I marking, or where's my man gone?
Yeah.
That's no fault in their part, certainly
but
not.
Something probably those two players didn't experience before.
Again, and going back to this is a huge learning curve for these guys. You know, if that happens again, you know, they'll be a bit more smart. You know, they'll be a lot more smarter. They'll be quicker to react. You know, so, but look, that was a planned approach by Donegal. Donegal knew that we were playing a youthful side. They knew we were playing an experienced side from a senior point of view. So they capitalised on it. They did it twice, you know, and they got the goal out of it towards the end.
John, you know the answer to the next question. Who was the last goalkeeper to captain Kerry? And you know him, you played with him and everything.
Charlie Nelligan.
Oh, Charlie Nelligan. Well, this has come in from Tygo Halloran. Charlie Nelligan in the 1989 Munster final was the last goalie to captain Kerry. Now, that's a bit of information for you. Move to our half-forward line.
Yeah, Tim, it's again, we'll be very happy with the half-forward line. Stephen, in Shawnee Shea, centre forward, you know, he looked at home there really, Tim. He was comfortable on the ball. His pace and his athletic ability is there, and he wasn't afraid to have a shot.
Do you know what I like about him? He don't turn back to his own goals. He goes to the opposition.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
And he has that.
And he's not afraid to have a shot, Tim, and I think that's refreshing in the football nowadays, because so many times we see top-class forwards not having the confidence to have a go, turning back and giving it to somebody else, passing the responsibility. He didn't do that.
And do you know who he reminds me of? I know Declan O'Sullivan was the best ball players to ever wear a jersey, and not just a Kerry jersey, but in general. Trevor Giles.
Correct, yeah.
He's the same attributes.
Similar, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And he was now standing centre forward.
Yeah. Stephen O'Brien.
The guys in the flanks?
Stephen O'Brien started a bit slowly, but certainly when Kerry needed him, he showed all his experience, particularly in the second half. I think his runs, his work rate was certainly there. And Stephen, I'm a fan of Stephen's for a long time, and you know he adds a pace. He puts the shoulder down and he goes for goal, and you know he's not afraid to get stuck in. And my Burns on the other wing, young lad again, but full of enthusiasm, full of work,
belief, because he's Dr. Crokes player.
Correct, full of belief, and you know he's available. He's not afraid to look for it. He's not hiding. Certainly, you know, he's a guy that could have a big part to play for Kerry as well, because he's that kind of a dynamism that you need in a wing forward. He'll play from box to box, and he'll break tackles. Good passer. He won't give the ball away. Typically Dr. Crokes, he doesn't give it away. He'll recycle it. He'll turn back. You'll never see him dropping a ball into a goalie's hand. He'll only kick when there's certain to be on.
Yeah. Martin, the half-forward line. Of course, we must mention David Clifford here again, even though he was in the full forward line. His assist for Stephen O'Brien's. Stephen was in the right spot to take the goal, for Kerry to go in. I suppose that won 88 points at half time, but Stephen was at the right side of the field to see.
He was. Look, the half forward line, you know, yesterday's half forward line scored 1-9, you know, 1-5 from play. Now 1-5 from play out of a half forward line, first game of the league. That's very.
You don't see it a lot nowadays.
Don't see it a lot, Tim. That's very, very impressive. You know, you look at Dublin's result against Kildare, you look at Mayo's result against Monaghan, they didn't come close. You know, so 1-5 from play, you know, with Micheál Burns, Sean O'Shea and an experienced Stephen O'Brien. That's impressive. That's very impressive. Micheál Burns, for me, you know, great time for him as a footballer. you know, we've always been looking or kind of anticipating or dying to see another Paul Galvin. You know, to me, he's really, really could potentially fit into that mould. You know, so yeah, look, it's exciting times. It's really exciting times. But the score 1-9 from look, you had 4 of those were frees from Sean O'Shea, but 1-5 from play from a lively, athletic, like John mentioned, half forward line. That's exciting.
That's pretty good. Comment here. Hi, Tim. Just wondering, what's the difference between club players and college players when it comes to being allowed to play the week before a league match? It seems very unfair to be allowed to play with the college and not with the club. John Kennedy, that comes from Jimmy in Carsovine.
Yeah, I suppose, Tim, look, a lot of these guys are on scholarships, you know, and they have to play with the college. You know, there's 2.
I suppose there's a bursary there that
correct,
you know, and they have to. Well, that's the agreement. If you get a scholarship, that you have to.
That's the agreement, I think. Yeah, and there's 2 of the lads that played yesterday. They're on the way up north with Liam Broston.
Of course, that's Gavin Crowley and David Clifford.
David Clifford, like, you know, and they played yesterday, and you know, they're.
When will the Dubs head out to watch David Clifford, because they could be meeting him in All-Ireland semi-final or final? What do you think?
They could root him. I think they have enough seen of him, maybe.
Just before we go to break, I'll read 1 or 2 other comments. It's interesting that both red cards on Saturday and Sunday were called by the umpires over 60 yards from the incident. Brilliant win by Kerry hurlers yesterday. Some fantastic performances by the younger players. Regarding our footballers, it was a young team, and these young men will learn and develop as a team. Above all, we dug out the win. Plenty more after this break.
Breaking down the weekend's sporting action. This is Terrace Talk on Radio Kerry.
Hi, you're very welcome back here to Terrace Talk, and I will try and get to as many comments as possible. They're really coming in tonight, and I won't stop you from doing it. Keep doing it, because very interesting game yesterday. Interesting time of the year, the National League, and some of those comments. Lads, did you see the performance of Brian Fenton? We have nobody compared with him. And I don't know where that call has come from. Our text. We have Kerry. Why have Kerry not tried out the young players for the past few years? We need to keep them, not just try them when we lose them. The team we have seem to be a very young one. Let's keep them. And that comes from a Donegal caller. Well done to Dahi Casey for a great run and finish. Another Crokes man to save the kingdom when they needed a score. I wonder did that comment come from Killarney? I'm sure it did. John Kennedy, the full forward line.
Yeah, the full forward line, Tim. Barry John Keane started very well. Great to see him getting a start, Tim. You know, and I think this is a guy that he's been tagged a super sub. It's time, I think, for people to stand up now. And guys like him that have been on the panel for a few years, either nailed down.
He's there since 2010, I've been reliably informed.
It's time to nail down a position now, because, you know, he's coming in cameo appearances, and he usually kicks a few scores when he does come in.
Do you think that plays in the mind of Barry John?
There's no doubt. There's no doubt, you know, it's everyone wants to start him, and if you're going well and you're not on, you know, I suppose it depends on the individual, but I know that.
Does a fear build into a player that when I do start, that I could be taken off because of the way he is used as an impact player?
Yeah, and likely when you come on, you want to make an impression. You're forcing the game. You can actually force things. You might be shooting from outside your zone, especially a forward, that you want to make a mark and kick a few scores. He did well yesterday. Fisted the first point, kicked the second one. You know, and a lot didn't go into him after that. But you know, he'd be happy enough. He did okay. Paul Gainey was, you know, he was in and out of the game, Paul, but he showed his leadership when we needed it most.
Do you know what I like about Paul? He blazed the ball over the bar for the penalty. A couple of minutes later, he was in the end of a move. He was the opportunist even.
Yeah, I thought his work rate yesterday, Tim, you know, when things weren't happening for him. He worked extremely hard. He was back around the middle of the field turning over ball, kicked a massive score from out near the sideline in the second half when we needed it, and put away the goal. You know, it was a fortuitous enough one when Stephen O'Brien's shot was blocked.
Is he Kerry's main talisman at the minute?
There's no doubt, Tim. He's one of our leaders up front, and he proved that again yesterday when we needed him. He was there.
And Mr. Clifford?
David Clifford did well, Tim. You know, he
was going to come in for a lot of attention anyway for a start.
There's no doubt, and he will come in for that, Tim, for the rest of the year, for as long as
the rest of his life, the rest of his playing career.
Absolutely. Okay, he's a marquee player, and all those guys come in for it, whether it's hurling or football. He showed great maturity yesterday, I thought. You know, particularly for the goal, the way another guy would have gone for it. He flicked it across. He was always looking for somebody, you know, kicked his free. Unlucky with one.
He's assist there for a couple of points as well.
Assist for, I think he was involved in 1-3. He kicked his free, and, you know, he'd 1 or 2 wide maybe, but overall, a great debut, Tim. And, you know, we'll be expecting more from him. But again, to reiterate what we said earlier on, it's patience with David Clifford. You know, he's not going to just go from minor to senior without, there's a transition. And while he has the talent, he's going to come in for some attention, and in every game. but he'd be happy with his performance.
Martin Horgan, was the reason for the backup of traffic to Farnham 4, was that David Clifford?
It was part of it, Tim. Certainly feel it was part of it. Look, it would have been Cormac Coffey, Gavin Crowley, Jason Foley, Micheál Burns. It plays a part in it, but to get just under 11,000 people,
it's massive.
It's huge. It's look, if any young guy, and there was a lot of young players and young kids in there yesterday, and not so young. If they were to look at the vision and movement of David Clifford and Paul Ganey, it was a joy. It's the movement and vision that footballers should be brought up with, should be trained with, should be coached.
Is that something they have by nature? They can see things that other players can't see. They're thinking, not different to Colin Cooper. They're thinking ahead.
Well, I'd imagine, yeah.
You can't coach that, though.
To a certain degree, it's part of their DNA. Some will get it quicker than others. Some it's a natural talent, but when you combine both, it can be dangerous. I'm very impressed with Barry John Keane. He started off, sometimes Barry John Keane gets a bit of unfair assessment out there, but, Barry John Keane is around since 2010. He made his debut in Terrace against Tipperary in 2010. Barry John Keane, didn't get the nod in Fitzmaurice's camp for the All-Ireland semi-final against Mayo. And yet it's exciting and it's nice to see that he's getting his go again. But what I would like to see now is leave Barry John Keane there.
And I'm sure in the past that Eamon Fitzmaurice would produce a spreadsheet, and I have a man coming on here now on the line, he'd tell me about stats, but he'll put out the spreadsheet and he'll compare him to any other player right throughout the country. And he'll say, Barry John, when you come on, you do more damage than any other player. So that's why he's been known as the super sub.
Quite possibly. Look, it's a tag that I suppose we don't like tagging players, but look, Barry John Keane is a great player. What I would like to see moving forward from Barry John Keane is, no different to Cormac Coffey, Gavin Crowley. Let Barry John Keane there, and let's see how it goes. And
now I have Sylvester Hennessy on the line. Good evening, Sylvester.
Good evening, Tim. Good evening, lads.
Well, Sylvester, have you any magic stats that we'll raise the eyebrow at, or something that happened unusual yesterday?
Well, I was listening to Ambrose afterwards on the way back, and Billy, they were talking about breaking ball and contested kick-outs, as opposed to, we won 21 out of 22 of our kick-outs. Shane Murphy found his man. The first kick-out he took, a Donegal player won it, and we won every one of them after that from Shane Murphy's kick-out. But as people saw it, they were going short. But the ones that were contested, and I mean the ones that went out to the middle of the park, we won 9 out of 27 of those. And that was the answer that Ambrose was looking for,
Right.
And that tells you we won 1 and 3 kick-outs that were contested. Of our starting midfield, between them combined, they won 1 kick-out.
Wow,
out of 27 that were kicked out in their direction.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not just saying it about the 2 guys playing in midfield, but we weren't picking up breaking ball either. I heard Martin talking about Paul Galvin there. Well, I can guarantee you if Paul Galvin was playing,
he's the first man that comes to mind, isn't he?
We would have picked up breaks, right? Okay. Now, that's just one stat. These are the things that Eamon will look at. The amount of scores that came off of Donegal's kickouts was extraordinary. And they did that against Dublin 3 or 4 years ago. It's not an unusual tactic that they have. And the space that we were leaving in front of the goal was quite extraordinary as well. These are just negatives. Overall, it was a fantastic day, wonderful to see the young players. But from an analyst's point of view, I'm just pointing out to you these are the little areas that Eamon will look at and try to tweak and won't be happy with.
And the good thing from a stats point of view that you can go back and, I suppose, be aware of these things happening and address that situation.
Absolutely, and they have a team of analysts there, and Eamon is very good at that type of thing himself, so he'll look at all of that. Ronan Shanahan won 9 kickouts, which I thought was quite good, and some of them were short, but he also won them around the middle of the park. Both sets of scoring ratios were quite good. 20 out of 31 for Kerry, that's 61%. Donegal, even better, 17 out of 25, 68%. And I suppose up to the 70% is what you're looking at inter-county level, but quite good. Assists, Mr. Clifford was equal with Stephen O'Brien and Paul Murphy with 3 assists each. Top tackle count individually on the day was Jason Foley, which is good to see, and Paul Murphy and Shane Enright just in behind him. And then the possessions, Ronan Shanahan topped that with Brendan Sullivan, 24 each, Paul Murphy, 23, Gavin Crowley, 18, and Micheál Burns, 18. They were the top 5 in possession as well, Tim. But I think overall it was a great day to be alive, great day to be a Kerry supporter. We've all been crying out for to look at the young players, and unlike the lads who keep pleading for patience, and Eamon Fitzmaurice and all the rest of the people who plead for patience, I'd rather change the theme to excitement and to energy and to all those different things that we need right now in this Kerry team. I think we all know you have to be patient with young players, but I also think we have to encourage them as well, you know, and it's going to be great to see how they evolve and develop over the next period of time. It's a very, very exciting time for everyone involved in Gaelic football in Kerry.
Great stuff, Sylvester. Thanks for coming on Terrace Talk tonight, and amazing stats, especially about the middle of the field. And like you say, there's plenty of energy and hope out there, and we look forward to the rest of the league. Thank you.
Cheers, Tim.
Of course, that's Sylvester Hennessy. Quickly to you, Martin. Amazing stats there. I suppose you can look at a player in different ways when you're a supporter or whatever. But the likes of Jason Foley, his possessions alone, it's amazing. He was drawn out the field, but he had a lot of possession.
Yeah, look, they're fantastic stats, great insight there. You know, Jason Foley having so many possessions. I'm not so sure I'd like my fullback to have that many possessions in a game, Tim. No, look,
I suppose he was drawn into.
He was drawn up the pitch. He did get sucked out, and I think he did get sucked out on purpose from a Donegal point of view. We allowed him to get sucked out, which was unfair on Cormac Coffey, Ronan Shannon when they were caught in the 2v2. So that's something that we'll have to look at moving forward.
You have to mind the house. Lads, you're going to stay with us, both John Kennedy and Martin Horgan. We'll continue with the Kerry versus Donegal conversation after 7, and we'll get to more of your comments as well.
Terrace Talk on Radio Kerry with Tim Moynihan. Mondays from 6 to 8 p.m.
You're very welcome back here to Terrace Talk. Of course, I've Martin Horgan and John Kennedy here in studio as we look back at yesterday's game, and those comments come through to us. Hi Tim, a few small points. Jack Barry and Barry O'Sullivan play together with UCD and control their game midweek. I'm not so optimistic defence-wise. Donegal should have scored 5 goals. They must be sickened with the score of 3-14 away from home and lose. What I most like was the belief, the no-lose belief. We conceded a goal to go 1 down, but ground out a 1-point win. That's a belief and a winning habit. Sean O'Shea was a joy throughout the game, and we need to shore up our defence. Did Shawnee O'Shea go to midfield when Dahi Casey came in, Martin Horgan?
He did indeed. Dahi came in. Dahi came in the 54th, 55th minute. Came in and Dahi did what Dahi does best for Dr. Crokes, and Dahi does what he did for the All-Ireland Club final. Dahi's a powerful player. He's really after gathering game intelligence over the last number of seasons, so I think we'll see Dahi Casey an awful lot more this year, Tim.
A tonic start in the second half. You know, that goal by Tony McGinnigan. That's what Donegal wanted with 3 points down going into the interval. Martin.
Yep, that's what they wanted. That's what they needed. You know, like I said already, you know, did they kick 3-14 or did we concede 14? You know, bottom line is they kicked 3-6 from play. And Mark
Brearty kept the scoreline ticking over with he was on song.
Mark Brearty, what did he end up with? 10 points?
Yeah.
8 frees, 2 from play, you know, contribute to another 2 scores on top of that. So a busy boy, but you know, we can't forget Mark Brearty is a seasoned top inter-county player against guys that Sylvester mentioned earlier on. You know, we're taking a chance with them. You know, Fitzmaurice is giving them a green light. You know, yes, we need to be patient. You know, are we in a position yet to look for performance percentages from game 1 to game 2 to game 3? I personally feel that might be a small bit too much pressure for the guys. I'd be more of a, you know, let's give them another go. Let's tell them get out there and play football the way that they're asked by Eamon Fitzmaurice, and let's sit down again in a few weeks' time.
On the 24th minute of the second half, McBrearty's point, that was 2-14 to 1-13 then, John. You could still say Donegal, you know, we're going to pull this one out of the fire with a man down.
They were, Tim, and you know, they looked as if they were going to win it at that stage, but again we regrouped him, and like I said, we were lucky enough, I suppose, to get the goal, because the goal came from a mistake by McBrearty, ironically, even though he was probably in line for man of the match. He lost possession, Stephen O'Brien got it, went through, shot was blocked, and the ricochet came to Paul Ganey and he put it away. But when they got the goal previous, Tim, Michael Burns kicked a very important score for Kerry.
It was a big score.
He took on the responsibility, and I think the response to the goal was very important, and that was a fantastic score. You know, because young heads can drop. I was just looking at, we had 10 guys with little or no senior experience going out there yesterday. Mistakes were going to be made, like, you know, and it was going to be open.
You're not going to get the perfect performance.
Correct.
Martin, I was mentioned about Dahi Casey there, typical Crokes fashion, you know, for that winner, shimmied inside, had the confidence like all Dr. Crokes players have, to take it on and finish.
Yeah, look, you mentioned the word there yourself, Tim. You know, he shimmied. The reason Daithí Casey and Micheál Burns and these guys can shimmy, Sean O'Shea, David Clifford, you know, Stephen O'Brien, Paul Gainey, you know, that they're your starting players, so to speak. But the reason these guys, in your own word, can shimmy is because they're double-sided players, Tim. They're fleet-footed left-right. They can hand pass left-right. You know, so shimmying for those guys is a lot easier than guys who are one-sided to shimmy. So yeah, look, Daithí's a powerful runner. I think, you know, what separates Daithí's performance yesterday to the performance in the past, you know, Daithí's experience with the club underneath Pat O'Shea is going to come into play big time, I think this year with the Kerry panel.
John Kennedy, the substitutions yesterday, how they apply themselves and ratings?
Yeah, Jack Savage came in and did well. Jack will always give you something, Tim. He's another one of these players that likes to be involved. He's looking for possession, and I think he has learned in that he's not shooting from outside the zone and stuff. He's recycling possession. Killian Spillane has the ability and has the talent, kicked a very important score as well. Didn't get too much possession, but kicked an important score. And then Matthew Flaherty and Brian O'Shanachon. It was great to see these guys. You know, out of the 5 lads that came in, you've 4 of them were inexperienced at senior level. You know, I think Daithí should have his experience for the winning point.
You need that balance. With the young fellas, you need that balance.
And Shanachon is a guy I think that will have a big part to play as well. He's a workhorse. You know, he's the work he does a lot of unseen work, unselfish work off the ball, covering back, and you know these are lads four you could say just out using the 21s. Great to see him in there, and another step along the ladder for them.
Martin Horgan, would you start the same 15 next Saturday night against Mayo?
Well, look, ideally, in an ideal world, yes, and I've mentioned it earlier on, of course we would like to see the starting 15. We have to bear in mind that, you know, David Clifford and Gavin Crowley are on a bus as we speak heading to Queen's University. Stopping off in Dundalk for refreshments and so forth. So, you know, you would have had from an inter-county point of view, from a training perspective, you know, you would have had units or miles in the tank last week. You know, they would have played a serious or put in a serious shift yesterday. You know, 24 hours rest, so to speak. I'm guessing those guys went to college this morning. You know, sitting in a bus for 8-9 hours.
Yeah.
You know,
those things are factors.
Is that the right environment to be in after an inter-county game? Of course it's not. So it's crazy pressure on these guys to be expected to go up to Queen's and play a Segerson Cup game tomorrow.
Yeah, 2 days after.
And come down again Tuesday night, another 9-hour trip, and then tag off again 4 days later for another serious game. So look, maybe you know, Eamon Fitzmaurice and his medical team might decide to, on that front, not to start those two guys. But other than that, I couldn't see a whole pile of change, Tim, no.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the team will be named towards the end of the week. 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 Be named towards the end of the week.